Redditors who grew up filthy rich, what did you think was normal till you learned otherwise? For more infotainment, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thanks for watching. And here is where the gap between our two worlds closes. I grew up poor, but I had to worry about kidnapping, too. Growing up, I had to be on the lookout for my biological father, who owed about $17,000 in child support. At the time, he never paid a cent. But he was a criminal, on the loose and wanted in my home state. Because no one knew where he was, he could easily swoop in at any time and disappear his little child support debt. Me. Because you can't collect child support on a dead child. So as a kid, I had to give my father's description to my friends, babysitters, teachers, and pretty much explain to everyone to be on the lookout for this villain who might be coming to snatch me away. I had to memorize code phrases in the event that a stranger approached me on my mother's behalf. It was generally a pretty awful childhood, and I'm amazed I didn't grow up to be chronically paranoid. My 4th grade teacher did a similar thing to me. I was the new kid and she told the others that they had to let me play with them until I made friends. I found out because about a month in they asked me if I had found friends yet because they were sick of letting me hang out with them, and here I thought I had made friends. Worst feeling ever. Edit. Wow, my first gold. It really was an awful feeling, and it took me about a year to find my place at that school, basically until the next new kid arrived. She's now been one of my besties for over 20 years, even though it's a long-distance friendship now. She'll even be in my wedding this summer. About 10 years after we graduated, she told me that those same kids approached her in high school and told her that she was pretty cool and if she wanted she could be friends with them. The only catch was that she had to stop being friends with me, and she basically told them to pound pavement. She's a keeper. Bonus story that's a little more relevant to the thread. When we moved, it was from a large city to a rural area, and I went around bragging about how we lived in a house. Where I came from, everyone I knew lived in apartments except some of the rich kids who lived in duplexes, and I couldn't get over how weird and lucky it felt to not have shared walls where you could hear your neighbors and to have a yard that was just for us. I didn't realize that none of the kids I was bragging to had ever even been inside an apartment before, let alone the fact that they all lived in way nicer houses. They must have thought I was nuts. I would say rich in the area, by comparison. I think the moment it really sunk in was during 5/6 grade, around middle school. I felt like I was getting too cool for little kid parties, so I decided I wanted to go somewhere and do something fun. My parents were super excited about this since it meant I was taking one stupid middle schooler with us on a mini trip instead of having 15 stupid middle schoolers in the house. I decided on a trip to some festival, which meant a ferry ride and then drive to a Canadian city and have a big fancy meal. The girl I picked had been my friend for years. I had no idea her life was so different. She lost her mind on the ferry. It was so fun. She had never seen Canada before, so we stopped and took her picture. My parents, realizing immediately that his was a huge deal for this girl, bought her and I souvenirs, which she later gave to her mom since her mom has never left the area. My mom would not let her order the cheapest thing on the menu, which I never realized is something poor children are trained to do. I thought you could just pick whatever you wanted to eat. She was the first person in her family to travel more than 30 miles from her house. This was pre-9/11, when a family could just take a random child with no ID and a permission slip from their parent into another country. We are both adults now, and occasionally run into each other. She is married with 4 children and still talks about the time we rode a ferry and went to Canada. Had she not brought it up, I probably would have forgotten. Edit. Fixed spelling error. Edit. Poor word choice made it sound like I married my childhood friend. This is not the case. I fixed it. At 18 I moved to an area with a lot of boat work, wound up working on a super yacht. Got along well with owners and was shifted to night service. Did that for a year, then got sick of living on water. It can get pretty lonely. So they asked me to come live with them. Pay was good and I got to travel with them a bit. But I worked every day around the clock. They had a chef and 3 nannies, cleaners etc. So I really didn't have to do much dirty work, just serve meals, and keep an eye on everyone else in the house. I had spent so much time with them they trusted me. I really enjoyed it, but after a few years I realized I cared about them than myself, so I left and went to university. Just finished last year. They tried to get me to come back halfway through my degree, but I turned down the offer. Now that I'm in the real world, job hunting is harder than I had imagined and I may go back in the future. In my final year I would have made 80-90K with zero expenses, so money is good if you are with a good family. Hypothetically I would totally have a butler, but kinda like I was, not super formal. Having someone who can help out with general would be handy. Wake up around 5 a.m., set up all the outside furniture. Fluff cushions, roll towels, make sure outside bar is well stocked. 6 a.m. get tables ready for breakfast service, help chef if need be. Serve breakfast to children around 7 a.m., then assist nannies in getting them ready for school. 8 a.m. school run. Serve breakfast for adults around 9 a.m. At breakfast I would generally be told about what they would be doing that day, so could figure out a schedule around that. After breakfast I would go run errands for a couple of hours, groceries etc. for chef or if any of the other house staff needed supplies. If nothing needed doing I would have a nap until midday. Midday would commence outdoor bar service, normally pretty slow, but I'd just be in the background in case anyone needed anything. Set and serve lunch around 2 p.m., then go and get kids from school. Then more hanging about. Around 5 p.m. I would pack up outdoor furniture, and turn down the house. Light candles, draw curtains, etc. 6 p.m. children's dinner. Then I'd take a couple of hours for myself. 8-9ish drive MR and MRS out to dinner. Come back and close house for the night, go to bed around 11 with my phone on loud in case they called for pickup after dinner. Generally they would have no problem getting a cab. That was pretty much 90% of my live-in days. I feel bad having said this while joining a friend on a road trip up into the mountains at his brother's house. There was slow as balls internet at the house we were going to and the connection dropped frequently. I didn't have my car with me since I was on a road trip with someone else at the time. This was also before personal Wi-Fi was a thing, and my cell phone at the time was a state-of-the-art brick phone from Nokia, thus no hotspot. Me, if there's any way I could borrow a car to hop into town for internet tomorrow that would be awesome. Friend, well, my brother uses his car every day and I'm using mine to go to that event we talked about. Me, that's fine. Is it okay if I just use his extra car? Awkward silence, until. Friend, he just has that one car. Edit, typo. Edit 2, fixing words so people don't keep getting confused. My family isn't even close to rich. My mother and father combined make less than $80,000/year right now, and they made less while I was growing up. I thought the same thing. Apartments were for couples without children, college students, or my Uncle Greg. Nobody else I knew was in one, so it stood to reason. Once you had kids, you moved into a house. With that being said, my parents didn't purchase a house until I was about 8, and they could only afford that because the landlord that was renting the house did not want to do some maintenance to the property and asked them if they wanted to buy it for a steal. He also stated that my parents had paid $X amount over the last 2 to 3 years as down payment to him personally, which was not the case, to make it easier to finish the mortgage. He was a good guy and we probably would have had a much harder time getting our first house otherwise. Edit, the 80K I mentioned is combined income for 2 people. Dad makes about 42K/year, Mom makes about 35K/year. For most of my childhood it was closer to 50-55K for a family of 5, they only got in this income bracket once I hit high school, and then Mom had a huge amount of medical issues that made them lose our first house. We had moved and started renting it out to a family friend, and have to declare bankruptcy. Considering they're still paying off the medical bills in bankruptcy, I consider them middle class, but I definitely didn't get a rich upbringing. They did make sure I didn't go without though. Smiley face. Goodwill is the awesome for things like that. EDIT2, Uncle Greg was awesome. He spent most of his younger years spending all his money trying to make it big as an artist. Once he hit about 40 he settled down, got married and now teaches art at an elementary school. He let me drink my first beer and I saw my first pair of at his apartment. He's now about 300 pounds and can rock the house break dancing.